Hello all. In this video, we're going to take the RPA Associate Practice Exam. So it has around 50 plus questions and to be answered in 1.5 hours. So without talking too much, let me head on to the website. So just open uipath.com/learning/certification and then scroll towards the end of the page where you will find link like RPA Associate Exam Practice. Click the link. You'll be taken to this page. So where you will fill all the details. Okay, so I would fill uh, okay, and the country, and then relationship, and then I would click login. So once we click login, so we need to validate if the provided details are correct or not. So everything looks correct, and then in order to take the certification, you have to practice things in UiPath version 2021.10. So everything is fine. I would click start answering questions. So we have 1.5 hours, and these are the examination started. So we have a total of 53 questions. Okay. The first question is, which characters can be used as wildcards while editing a selector? So hope you are aware of wildcards usage in selectors, okay? So where if you don't know the exact value, then we can use wildcards, right? And of course, the answer is question mark and asterisk, okay? So question mark will replace one character and asterisk will replace any number of characters, okay? So this is the answer. I would choose 2 and click next page. In order to ensure a robust and stable automation, which selector should be modified based on best practices? Okay, so here are four selectors. Okay, and we wanted to make the selector robust. Okay, what can be done? Okay, mm, so first thing is Chrome.exe, world population Wikipedia, population by continent, and then table column equals 3 and row equals 7. So this is not robust because of course the population by continent can vary in a different region, so this cannot be robust. And Chrome.exe title equals history UiPath platform and IDX equals 94, which cannot be same all the time, so this is not robust. And ANM equals search, this can be robust because there is no ID or some dynamic values, it's not this, so this can be robust, but let us check the next option as well. Okay, so here it says download monthly report and says ANM equals year 200 question mark, right? This cannot be robust because it will work from 2000 till 2009, but if the year is 2010, this will not work. Okay, so out of these, if you use a and m tag, and which is not dynamic, which is static all the time, so that's the robust one. So I would choose the third option and click next page. In UiPath Studio, which argument directions exist? Okay, so first let us discuss what an argument is. An argument is something which is used to pass values from one workflow to another workflow. So we have two workflow files, and from one workflow file, we have to pass a value to another workflow file. In such cases, we can use arguments, right? So we have basically from the parent workflow to the child workflow, when we pass a value, we'll use in argument. So the opposite of it, okay? So when you want to return a value from child workflow to the parent workflow, then we can use out arguments, and of course, there is also an in or out arguments which is used when you pass in a value, you change the value inside the child workflow, and then you want to return the value back to the parent workflow. In such cases, we can use in-out arguments. So basically, the answer is in, out, and in-out arguments. Okay, I will click next page. What describes the file access level needed when using the workbook read range activity? Okay, so we all know what is workbook read range activity, right? So it works with any workbook, okay? So it works with, yeah. So when we talk about the workbook Excel sorry, work rearrange activity, there is a difference, right? There is an Excel rearrange activity, there is a work rearrange activity. Okay, so the difference is that when we use Excel rearrange activity, Excel should be installed in the system, and when we use the workbook activities, of course, we don't need Excel to be installed, so it can work on its own. Okay, so when we talk about the workbook rearrange activity, uh, okay, either this or this, we'll check. Works with Excel SX files and Excel does not need to be installed. Works with .xls files and Excel does not need to be installed. Works with, so ideally 2 and 4 are not the answers, either this or this. Okay. So works with .xlsx file and Excel does not need to be installed. Okay. So that's the correct answer. I will click next page. So what are the differences between variables and arguments? So variables are used to pass values within a workflow or within a sequence or within a file, whatever you call. Okay. But arguments will pass value from one workflow to another workflow, basically. So variables pass data between activities inside the same workflow. Okay, yes. And arguments pass data between workflow files. Okay, this can be correct. Variables can pass data between workflow files. Wrong. Variables must be assigned to an argument value. Wrong. Variables always have a direction. Argument must be assigned. No. So this is the correct answer, where variables can be used within one workflow, and then if you want to pass a value from one to another workflow, we can use arguments. Next, a developer wants to build a project which iterates through multiple digital invoice files to retrieve total value. Okay, so there are several PDF files and there is a field called total value which the developer want to build the project to read the value. Okay, assume all the values have the same structure. What action should be performed based on the best practices? Okay, so first thing is OCR uh, might not be required because here they did not say that it's a scanned PDF. They clearly say that it is a digital PDF, right? So for digital PDF, OCR is not required. So that's not the correct answer. Use the total values, sorry, ensure the total values are copied to clipboard by using hotkeys. No. Use the find image. No, because we don't need image here. So ensure the selectors are valid for invoices. So since they said all the invoices are of same structure, we need to ensure that the selectors are valid for all invoices. I would choose this and click next page. A developer wants to create a process that executes three sequences asynchronously. So when we want to execute sequence asynchronously, we can use parallel activity, which will execute one or more sequences asynchronously. It's not restricted to three; it can be four or five or anything. Okay. So when we want to execute uh, things in parallel, we have to use the parallel activity. Okay. A developer has a workflow in which the value of counter needs to be evaluated before the body of loop is executed. Okay. So a developer has a workflow in which the value of a counter needs to be evaluated before the body of loop is executed, which counter activity should be used. Okay. So so before the loop is executed. Okay. So we can see when you want to evaluate something before the loop is executed, then ideally we have to use while loop, right? Because in do while loop, it will be evaluated only after the first iteration, right? So ideally we have to use while loop if you want to if you want to evaluate a value or evaluate the counter before starting of loop, we can use while loop. Which data type is used to store data extracted from a Excel file using a read range activity? So read range activity will extract data from rows and columns. So ideally the result type will be of type data table. So that's the answer. Click next page. A developer successfully published a package from 2021.10 to ArcTech 2021.10. Okay. a shared folder. The developer did not make any changes to the project and published the package again successfully. Okay. So even though if there are no changes and if the package is published once again, so ideally a new version will be created. Okay. So a new version of the project is sent to orchestrator and it is set as active version. No, it won't set as active version. A new version will be published, but we have to change the version manually. Okay. So a new version of project is set up, but it is not set as active version. Uh, okay. So all are wrong answers. Only third option is the correct one. Okay. When using the for each activity to loop through the output of a get IMAP mail message activity, how should the type or given property be set? Okay. So when we say get IMAP mail messages, so all are mail messages, but it is not one mail message. It's actually a collection of mail messages, right? And of course, they're asking if you want to loop through the output, okay, then what type should we do? Should be given, okay? So when we loop through all the emails, every mail will be of type system.net.mail message, right? The output of get IMAP mail messages is a enumeration or a list of mail messages. So ideally, every item will be of type mail message. Okay, so this is the answer. What describes the relationship between UiPath robots and UiPath orchestrator? Yeah, so for this, so UiPath robot, if you create an attended robot, okay, so that need not have the credentials stored, but when we do things with unattended robot, we have to give the credentials as well. So the answer will be unattended robots can be connected to UiPath orchestrator without the Windows username. No. UiPath orchestrator consumes queue items. No. Uh, because UiPath robot will send items to UiPath orchestrator. Okay. So UiPath robots can be deleted. No. So attended robots can be connected to UiPath orchestrator without Windows credential. That's the correct answer. I would click next page. A developer is using a datetime variable called event date. The developer wants to display the date value stored in event date variable in the output panel, right? If the developer is using a log message activity and a DDMMIV format, which expression should be used? Okay. So ideally, when we want to convert a type to a string, sorry, when we want to convert a date type to a string, you have to use dot to string activity. So this is the correct answer. Okay. So event date dot to string of DDMMYY. So a developer is reading a CSV file with a read CSV activity. In order to access the data in the output data table by the column names. Okay, so after the data is read, okay, so after the data is read from read CSV activity, output is obviously of type uh, uh, obviously it will be of type data table, right? And then they want to access the value based on column, like in this column give the value. If they want to access in that way, so which property need to be enabled in UiPath Studio? So we definitely need this has headers enabled, right? In the read range, in the read CSV activity. Otherwise, headers will not be there. Okay, so ideally this should be the answer. I would click next page. A developer has created an automation process that includes main.xaml, okay, which says that it will invoke supermarket.xaml, okay, and then we are passing an input argument of a value to be added to shopping basket. So they're giving the value called fruits here, and then so in the supermarket.xaml, uh, we have an assign activity which will uh, concatenate that fruits, and then it will say comma orange. So that way it will concatenate. So based on the information, what is the output of right activity in the main.xaml? Okay. So here the write fruits. Okay. So here ideally we have a main.xaml. Okay. Here we have fruits as a variable and it has the value apple, right? So we are passing inside to another workflow, but ideally from that workflow we are not returning anything, right? So whatever variable we have here, only that will be displayed here. Okay, so this will display just the word apple. Okay, yes. And next page. What describes a function of UiPath version control? Version control is basically uh, uh, so uh, so for every version you publish in UiPath orchestrator, it maintains a version. That's the benefit of version control. So stores only one version of project in version control system, provides ability to publish multiple versions orchestrator. Of course, this is the answer because you can also roll back the version from one to another, right? So we have that feature in version control. Uh, yeah, so this is the answer. Okay, click next. In UiPath Studio, what is the primary feature of a flowchart? So flowchart. So ideally, we can branch through activities. That's the main benefit of flowchart. So ability to connect activities multiple ways by branching. That should be the correct answer. And all others, if we read, so that doesn't relate to the usage of flowchart. Okay, so this is the correct answer. I will click next page. A developer has created a variable of type string called levels, has assigned the value 1 comma space 2 comma space 3 comma space 4 comma space 5 comma space 6. So what is the result uh, data type for the expression levels dot split of comma uh, character and then of 1, right? So ideally, so when a string is split uh, by any character, right? So this split will return a string array. But of course, if we put uh, off 1, which means that it will return the first item of the array. Okay, it's not the first, it's second item. So index starts with 0. So second item of the array. So the result will be 2. Okay, but ideally it won't be of type int32. It will be of type string because basically it will create a string array, right? And if you take one item of string array, it will be of type string. Okay. A developer has created a process for a local university that wants to report on student grade levels for different courses. Developer has created the following workflows. There is a init score 55, bool flag equals false, and if init score, sorry, it's in score greater than 70, then they write level B. Greater than 50, then they are checking if bool flag, okay, uh, not sure what it is, okay. Then they say level C or level D, else level E, okay. So ideally bool flag is false, okay. So this block will not execute, so it has to write level D, okay. So based on the exhibit, what output is produced in the output panel, okay. So we pass a value 55, it will check if I know there is something wrong here, okay. Here it cannot start with else if directly, but that's fine, okay. So here we check int score greater than 70 false, right. It goes to else if greater than 50 true, but bool flag is false, so it won't write C, it will write D, and else is wrong, so the answer is level D. Next page. Very easy question. So there is a string while 2020, and then we are going to split by 2, okay? And then, so ideally, what will happen if we split by 2? Uh, so this will be converted to an array, okay? Uh, so, so before 2, whatever empty will go into one string, okay? this 0 will go into one string and this 0 will go into another string. So it will be like one empty and two zeros. So based on the graphic, what is the output at runtime? So we are looping through all the items and displaying the item, right? Basically, it will be uh, blank 0 0. The first will be blank because before there is nothing. So one blank and then 0 0. So that's the correct answer. Next page. So based on the best practice, how many global exception handlers can we set up per automation project? Okay, I'm not very sure on this, so I would say um, one for each workflow, but let me review later, okay? And click on next page. Which activities used to trigger a sequence named init all settings from the main.xaml, right? So when we want to invoke another workflow, we have to use invoke workflow file activity. That's the answer. What is the benefit of using UiPath orchestrator queues, right? So when we use queues, okay, we can monitor status of queue items. That's correct. Ability to change the number of retries at queue level after queue creation. No, that's not possible. Enables multiple robots to process the same queue item at the same time. No. When a queue item is picked up by one robot, it cannot be picked up by another robot. So that's wrong. And ensures each queue is only processed by one robot by default. Each queue, no. So each queue can process many robots. Only one queue item is restricted to one robot. Okay. So this is the answer where we can monitor the status of queue items. Okay. That's the answer. Which dependencies are automatically installed when a developer starts a blank process in UiPath Studio 2021.10? Okay. So ideally, this word, table and all wrong. So these are all not mandatory. So these won't be added by default. Database credential, these are not mandatory. So ideally, we'll have this mail and Excel actors, which are very basic for every activity. So these two will be added by default. A developer wants to retrieve all UI elements from a form that is based on a filter condition. Which activity should developer use? Okay. Um, so that should be find children. Um, set clipping region is totally different. Okay. Find element uh, will find an element and of course it will give the selector as output. Okay. Mouse trigger is not related. So find children will return all the elements of a form. Okay. If we select the form and do find children, this will give all the elements of a form. Okay. So the answer is find children. A developer wants to remove the company name from UiPath certification string. Which string method will return certification? Okay, of course, they won't remove just this word UiPath. Okay, so how can we remove? That's the question. Okay, so UiPath certification dot substring of 6. So UiPath 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Of course, if we use this, so this will leave the 6 characters and then from here things will be extracted. So this is correct. Okay. UiPath certification dot substring of 6 dot trim. So we don't need to trim anyway. It will this trim is not necessary. Okay. UiPath certification dot substring of 6 comma 14. So after 6 we have it will extract 14 characters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So it has only 13 characters. So this is not the correct one. And this is not the correct one. So it's either of this or this, okay? UiPath space certification dot substring of 6 or substring of 6 dot trim. So ideally, I think we don't need to trim it again because it's already trimmed, okay? Uh, Let me check once again. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So from the sixth character, right, it will take uh, certain characters, right? So I think a trim is necessary. We'll choose this option, but we'll review later, okay? A customer calls into a call center to get update on their current outstanding payment considering the following use case. The customer provides a customer ID to the call center representative. The call center representative inputs the customer ID to a web application. The robot scraps the data from web application and the robot performs calculations and the outstanding amount is provided to the customer over telephone by the representative. What is the number of steps that require manual intervention? Okay, manually. Uh, the call center representative inputs a customer ID. That's one man's manual step, right? And then the outstanding amount is provided to customer over telephone. Uh, two. Uh, so it should be either two or three because manually he is getting the customer ID from the customer. He will enter the customer ID there, and then the outstanding amount it will he will talk to representative. So when we say manual intervention to the application, then it's just one. So just inputting the customer ID, right? Uh, but but actually there are three things done manually, but they say manual intervention, so which means only this step where the customer ID is being entered in the application by the call center representative. Okay, so it's one. During development, a breakpoint is enabled for a particular activity. Later, the developer published a package and created a process and orchestrator. When the process runs from a UiPath robot in uninterrupted mode, what is expected behavior? Ideally, breakpoints are only during debugging. So once you publish, breakpoint has no value. Okay, so breakpoint will not have any impact on the process execution. Right? That's the correct answer. So breakpoint is only for debugging. Once you publish things, so breakpoint has no value. Okay. A user need to download a report for each month of the year and decides to loop over the months using a for each activity. Which data type is best suited to hold the values of the name of the months? A user needs to download a report for each month of the year and decides to loop over the months using a for each activity. Right, so how to hold all the months, right? Ideally, it's a string array, right? So we have Jan till December. So if you want to loop through all the months, we need a string array or list of string, both are fine. But ideally, list of string is not required because we are not going to add months later, right? So it's a static list, right? So we can do it with a string array. Which activity can be used to retrieve the value from a specific column? So we can use uh, value of a specific column. We can use filter a table and we can restrict the columns to, but of course the output will be of type uh, uh, data table. So they say from a data row object, right? So for a data row object, that should be get row item because get row item will take in a data row and then it will retrieve one column value. So the answer is get row item. Which feature is unique to the UI Explorer tool when compared to selector editor? Okay. So in UI Explorer, okay, we can wildcards can be done in selectors itself, repair can be done in selectors itself, okay, indicate selector itself, okay. But this view full hierarchy, so that's only possible with UI Explorer. So this is the unique feature in UI Explorer. Okay, which function does the anchor-based activity provide? Anchor-based activity will be like, so if we can't locate an item based on the existing selectors, we can use anchor-based activity where uh, you will have a reference, right? So besides this text or besides this item, whatever it's there, you do the operation there, right? So for that we use anchor-based activity. So ideally the first block of anchor-based activity will be like either find element or find image, and the second block will be of the correct action. So like type into click or something. Okay, whatever we do. So searches an UA element by using another UA element as an anchor and searches a specified area around the anchored element. Searches for an UA element by attaching reliable selector. No, no, no. So this is the correct answer. So where you will find an UA element based on other UA element. That's the benefit of UA. Sorry, anchor-based activity. A developer is tasked with the design process to interact with the financial accounting application. The process is designed in the following way. The process need to validate the payment status field in application. There are three possible values: pending, paid, or awaiting approval. For pending, the process should check the due date field. If the due date is lapsed, raise an alert, otherwise do nothing. For paid, change the overall status to completed. For awaiting approval, send an alert email to the email address of the account holder field. Okay. Based on best practice, which activity is recommended for designing the step workflow? Okay. So if you want to do this, okay, there are three static values, right? So pending, paid, and awaiting approval, right? So ideally, we can use this switch activity as a best practice to uh, do it efficiently, okay? And all the three are not valid, okay? A developer generated a static selector by selecting indicate on screen inside a click activity, okay? Static selector, which means that the value will not be changed at all, okay? In addition, the developer need to review the full list of attributes, okay, of the target UA element, okay? So if you want to see, of course, you have to use the UA Explorer tool, okay? So that's the answer. So what is the correct sequence of queue item statuses if all statuses are involved in the transaction execution of the queue item? What is the correct sequence of queue item statuses if all statuses are involved in transaction execution? Okay, so ideally, so when we add item to a queue, it will be of state new. So that's the first status. And then when the item is picked up by the robot, it will be of type in progress. That's the second option. And then if we have a couple of retries, then uh, uh, it will be of type retried. And then at the end, if everything is failed, it will have the type fail. So, but anyway, I have a doubt here. Uh, might be failed and retried. Okay, after in progress, if it failed for the first time, it will be failed. And then even after retry, if it is failed, it will be of status retried. Okay. So I have a doubt here, but anyway, let me review it later and go to next page. So what is the consideration when working with either partial or a full selector? Okay, so basically, full selector will have all the top level information as well uh, in the selector, but partial will not have the top level information. For example, when we do things with attached browser, open browser, and then inside if you put an activity which uses selector, then that will be partial selector. But if you do the same thing without an attached browser, attached window, or open browser activity, then that will be a full selector because it will capture the tree level information as well. Okay, so partial selectors include information about the top level workflow. No, it won't have the information. So partial selectors do not include information about the top level workflow. That's correct. Full selectors are recommended to perform multiple actions in the same window. This looks like correct, but let us check this as well. Partial selectors are recommended to perform multiple actions in the same window. Full selectors, no. So this might be the correct one. So partial selectors, when we use it's like within one activity like open browser or attached browser, we'll do many things. Okay. So there. So only if we do multiple actions with the same application, right? Then we can use partial selectors, and of course, full selector include information about top level as well. So this is the correct answer. I would choose next page. What is the characteristics of an orchestrator asset? Right. So asset types cannot be changed for sure. Asset values can be defined for each user. Asset can hold entire data table variables. No. All values from an asset type are encrypted. No. So this might be the correct answer. I will review for later and click next page. So developer want to retrieve all rows of table uh, data table variable with a price value greater than 1000. Okay. So when we want to do like this, we can definitely use a filter data table activity to filter something. Okay. A developer need to create a variable to store a value of a username. Okay. Which variable field is optional. Okay. Name is necessary, scope is necessary, type is necessary. Of course, default can be ignored. Okay. What is a feature of native screen scraping method? So native is a good old method of screen scraping. Okay. And what is the feature? So it uh, runs in background. No. So native will not run in background. Extract hidden text. No, it won't extract hidden text, but it will work only extract the text position. That's the correct one. So I will click next. What happens if a process is started from an on-premise UiPath orchestrator? Okay. So process starts running on the same machine as orchestrator. No. Process start running on all machines that are provisioned in orchestrator. So ideally, we will not run process in the orchestrator itself. Okay. So it has to run on a different machine. So click next. Which data type does selector property of an activity accept? Selector uh, ideally it takes string type. Okay, so we can pass a string as selector. Okay, that we can do. So which business process is best suited for automation? Creating a presentation PowerPoint for a new training event, collaborating with team members on new research company goals, scheduling and sending out high volume of reminders for patients, answering a key financial client's concern. So most of things involve intelligence, but only third one is only about sending reminders for patients, so that can be automated. A user wants to write a table to XLSX file, however, the file does not exist. What happens if the workbook write range activity is used to write the table, right? So ideally, if we use write range, okay, so it will be created and then data will be written, okay. So no need to worry about that. So file will be created and data will be located in the file, okay. Which element must exist for each dictionary object? Okay, this is must exist for. I don't know. This is not each. Okay, so which elements must exist for dictionary object? This should be for dictionary object. Okay, so for dictionary object, we definitely need a key value pairs. So what is the key? What is the value? Okay, Review the graphic. So we have a sequence, string item, array items of one, okay, and it has only one item. So here actually this is wrong because if you access by one, it should access the second item. The array index starts with zero. So at least the first line itself will throw an exception. It is of type index out of range exception. So the output will be index out of range exception. A developer used the data scraping wizard to extract table from a website. Developer noticed that in the workflow file, the variable name was not recognized in activity that contained an error indicating that it was not declared. Uh, which UiPath Studio panel can developer use to update the scope of data table variable? Okay, okay, of course. If it was not recognized, we have to use the variables panel where we can change the scope. Okay, so maybe if it is in the inner scope and if it's not accepted outer scope, we can use the variables panel and change the scope. A developer is creating an automation that needs to log into a desktop application. The automation will enter the password in the application user interface. The password contains only numbers. So what is the recommended variable type to store the password value? So whatever it can be, if it can be numbers or string, okay. If you want to store store a password value, so we should definitely use a secure string variable, okay? Because with secure string we cannot see the password, but using type secure string you can enter the password in any application, okay? So it should be stored of type secure string, okay? And which component of the UiPath platform is used to create workflows? Whether it is UiPath workflows is basically in UiPath Studio only will create workflows, okay? So it's UiPath Studio. In UiPath Studio, which features provided by JIT version control. Okay, so JIT is a version control system which will enable multiple users to work parallelly on an automation project. So, so prevents more than one user from working on a project. No, it allows basically more than one user to work on single project. Publishes update process orchestrator. Returns the studio workflow back to previous state. Identify errors. No. So basically, uh, JIT version control actually allows multiple users to collaboratively work on a single project. Uh, but all options seems wrong. I don't know. Publishers updated process to orchestra. Maybe this is the correct one. Okay. So when we make changes to the process and then when you publish, so this will go to orchestrator. Okay. That can be the correct answer, but let's validate. Which function is available with the attended robot? Okay. So we have an attended robot, right? So uh, the process can continue in lock screen. No. The process can be started with the assistant or command prompt. We have seen the question already. So if we create an alternate robot, then the process can be started with the UiPath assistant or the command prompt. That's the correct answer. A developer need to ensure a string has a valid email format. Okay, so we can use regular expressions to confirm if a string is of a type email type. Okay, this is the last question. A developer is reviewing a file contents of UiPath Studio project in which location UiPath dependencies are specified. Okay, so all the dependencies are mentioned in the project.json file. So that's the correct file. Okay, so we can file that we can find all the dependencies in this file. Okay, which will be in the project folder itself. Okay, it is done. So let us review the score that we actually got. I click finished, confirm, and finished. To see my score, it is 89. So it's a good score, right? So Of course, it's time for us to review the results. So I'll click review results to see which questions has been answered wrongly. So 2, 16, 21, 27, 41, 50. 3, 6. Totally 6 questions has been answered wrongly out of 53 questions. That's definitely a good score. Uh, okay, okay, fine. Hope you got a good understanding on the certification questions, practice certification questions, and also justifications what I have given for each question, right? So this will definitely help you to procure your certification in UiPath, and I would like to wish you all the best for certification. Yeah, thank you.